In 1990, almost nobody believed Poland would become one of Europe's greatest economic success stories. Its economy was collapsing, inflation was spiraling out of control, and millions faced an uncertain future. Yet just a few decades later, the same country would leave much of Europe behind. Think about this. Poland is now one of Europe's largest manufacturing hubs, exporting everything from batteries and buses to advanced machinery and aircraft components. But the real question is, how did this transformation happen so quickly? Most people assume Poland simply received money from the European Union. But here's what nobody tells you. Plenty of countries received funding. Very few achieved results on the same scale. What happened next shocked economists around the world. Poland became the only European Union economy that avoided recession during the global financial crisis of 2008. That wasn't luck. It was the result of decades of difficult decisions. Today Poland's economy is worth well over $800 billion, making it one of the largest in Europe. Yet only one generation ago, many young Poles were leaving home because opportunity seemed impossible to find. So what did Poland do differently? Why did global companies pour billions into this country instead of somewhere else? And why are economists still studying its rise today? To understand Poland's success, we have to begin with geography. Sitting in the heart of Europe, Poland connects Germany in the west with Ukraine, Belarus and the Baltic region in the east. For centuries, this location brought both opportunity and conflict. With nearly 38 million people, Poland has one of the European Union's largest domestic markets. That means companies investing here don't just manufacture for exports, they also gain millions of customers at home. Unlike many European countries, Poland also possesses valuable natural resources including coal, copper and silver. These resources fueled industry for decades, even though they would never become the country's biggest advantage. Most people never realize Poland's modern economy was shaped by one of the darkest chapters in European history. World War II devastated cities, industries and millions of lives, leaving the country with an enormous task of rebuilding almost from nothing. After the war, Poland spent decades under a centrally planned communist economy. Factories belonged to the state, prices were controlled, and competition barely existed. On paper, the system promised stability, yet somehow it delivered stagnation instead. By the late 1980s, inflation had exploded, shortages became routine, and public frustration reached a breaking point. The old economic model was running out of time. But the biggest turning point was still ahead. In 1989, Poland held partially free elections, opening the door to a completely different future. Few people realized those political changes would soon reshape the country's entire economy, and eventually influence the whole region. The new government inherited an economy that many believed was beyond saving. Inflation was soaring, state industries were collapsing, and unemployment was about to rise sharply. Yet one bold plan would change Poland's future forever. And almost nobody expected it to work. January 1, 1990. Poland launched one of the boldest economic experiments in modern history. Prices were freed almost overnight, subsidies were slashed, and the country abandoned the old communist system faster than almost anyone thought possible. The architect behind this plan was Finance Minister Leszek Balcerowicz. His strategy became known as the Balcerowicz Plan, or simply shock therapy. The idea was simple but incredibly risky: end the crisis quickly instead of dragging it out for years. The first months were painful. Prices jumped sharply, many state-owned factories struggled to survive, and unemployment, once almost unheard of under communism, began rising. For many families, the transition felt more like a crisis than a miracle. Yet something unexpected happened. Inflation gradually came under control, private businesses began appearing across the country, and thousands of entrepreneurs opened shops, workshops, and small factories that simply couldn't exist before. Think about this. Under the old system, opening a private business was heavily restricted. Suddenly, millions of people could build companies, hire workers, and compete in a real market economy. But reforms alone weren't enough. Poland also needed foreign investment, modern technology, and access to global markets. Without those, the recovery could have stalled before it truly began. International companies noticed something promising. Poland offered a skilled workforce, competitive labor costs, and a location right in the center of Europe's supply chains. That combination was difficult to ignore. German manufacturers were among the first to expand production across the border. Instead of moving factories halfway around the world, many discovered Poland was only a few hours away by truck. And this is where geography became an economic weapon. Instead of shipping products across oceans, companies could reach Germany, France, Italy, and other European markets within days, or sometimes even hours. Then came another historic milestone. In 1999, Poland joined NATO, giving many investors greater confidence in the country's long-term stability. For international businesses, stability matters almost as much as profit. But the biggest breakthrough was still ahead. Poland had spent years preparing to join the European Union, rewriting laws, modernizing regulations, and opening its economy to meet European standards. On May 1, 2004, Poland officially became a member of the European Union. Overnight, businesses gained far easier access to one of the world's largest single markets. It was a moment decades in the making. European funding soon helped finance highways, railways, bridges, wastewater systems, and public infrastructure. But here's what many people miss. The money worked because Poland already had a plan for using it. Within just a few years, Poland looked dramatically different. Faster roads connected factories to ports, modern railways linked industrial regions, and international companies expanded even faster than before. The momentum was becoming unstoppable. Yet the most remarkable part of Poland's rise wasn't the reforms or even European Union membership. The real engine of growth was a hidden system connecting factories, roads, ports, banks, and millions of skilled workers. And that's where the story becomes truly fascinating. By now, Poland had new highways, foreign investment, and access to Europe's single market. But here's what nobody tells you. None of that would have mattered without an invisible system keeping the entire economy moving every single day. Think of Poland as Europe's giant distribution center. Every day, thousands of trucks cross the country carrying car parts, electronics, food, machinery, and consumer goods between east and west. Railways became just as important. Modern freight trains now move massive volumes of cargo across Poland, linking factories with ports on the Baltic Sea and markets across the continent. One of the biggest winners was the port of Gdansk. Once a regional harbor, it has grown into one of the Baltic Sea's most important cargo gateways, connecting Poland directly with global shipping routes. Imagine building a car in Germany. The engine might arrive from Poland, the seats from the Czech Republic, and the electronics from another European factory. Poland became a critical link in that production chain. Most people picture finished products leaving factories. In reality, many Polish factories specialize in precision components, the parts that quietly keep Europe's industries running. And this is where education made a difference. Poland invested heavily in technical universities, engineering programs, and vocational schools, creating a workforce that global manufacturers could rely on. But skilled workers alone don't create economic miracles. Businesses also need stable banks, reliable credit, and confidence that tomorrow's investment will still make sense years from now. Poland's banking sector remained relatively conservative compared with many Western financial institutions. That cautious approach helped the country avoid some of the worst financial shocks during the global crisis. Then came the ultimate test. In 2008, much of Europe entered recession. Construction slowed, demand fell, and uncertainty spread across financial markets. Poland faced the same storm, but produced a very different outcome. Poland became the only member of the European Union to avoid recession during the 2008 global financial crisis. Strong domestic demand, healthy banks, and continued investment helped keep the economy growing when many others were shrinking. Yet Poland's story wasn't perfect. Millions of young people left to work elsewhere in Europe after EU membership, creating labor shortages at home even as the economy continued expanding. To solve that problem, companies invested more in automation, while Poland also welcomed workers from neighboring countries, especially Ukraine. Once again, adaptation became one of the country's greatest strengths. By the early 2020s, Poland had become far more than a manufacturing economy. It was emerging as one of Europe's strategic economic powers, attracting record investment while reshaping the continent's industrial future. But the biggest surprises were still waiting. By the early 2020s, Poland was no longer simply catching up with Western Europe. It had become one of the continent's fastest-growing major economies, forcing investors and policymakers alike to pay close attention. Today, Poland has one of the European Union's largest economies, producing well over $800 billion in goods and services each year. Yet what's even more remarkable is how diversified that economy has become. Poland is now among Europe's leading producers of batteries for electric vehicles. As the automotive industry shifts toward electrification, factories across the country have become increasingly important to global supply chains. Another surprise is Poland's technology sector. Thousands of software engineers, cybersecurity specialists, and technology startups are helping transform the country into far more than just a manufacturing powerhouse. Geography has become even more valuable in today's uncertain world. As companies seek to shorten supply chains, Poland's central location offers faster and more reliable access to European customers than many distant manufacturing hubs. Poland has also dramatically increased investment in national infrastructure and defense. Those investments are reshaping industries, creating jobs, and strengthening the country's strategic role on NATO's eastern flank. But rapid growth creates new challenges. Rising wages, an aging population, and fierce competition for skilled workers mean Poland can no longer rely on low costs alone. The next phase of growth will depend on innovation, productivity, and advanced technology. In many ways, Poland is competing not on cheaper labor anymore, but on smarter manufacturing and higher value industries. Here's a surprising fact. Poland's economy today is several times larger than it was in the early 1990s after adjusting for decades of growth. That transformation happened within the lifetime of a single generation. And perhaps the biggest lesson isn't about Poland alone. It's about what can happen when geography, long-term planning, difficult reforms, and human determination begin working together toward the same goal. Remember the mystery we began with. Poland didn't become one of Europe's fastest-growing economies because of one lucky decision or one source of funding. It happened because decades of reforms, investment, education, infrastructure, entrepreneurship, and resilience all reinforced one another. The next time you hear about how Poland became Europe's fastest-growing economy, remember that the story is far more complex than it appears on the surface. Behind every statistic, every headline, and every success story lies a chain of decisions, risks, and human ambition. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe for more deep dives into the stories shaping our world.